From 1878 to 1968, there were 71 lake captains that called Bayview, Wisconsin, on the shore of Lake Michigan, their home. While they lived here, they captained 195 different ships, from tugboats to schooners to steamships, in voyages that took them to every one of the Great Lakes. Join us now for another episode of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, where we explore not only these captains, but also their ships, their homes, their families, and their lifetime of sailing adventures on the Great Lakes.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains. I'm standing today in front of a lake captain's house on William Street in Bayview. This captain was an immigrant from Germany before Germany was formed, when it was a conglomeration of 39 different independent states. Possibly from Prussia, which was the biggest, but I don't know that. He captained steamships, and he had a very famous grandfather on his wife's side over in Germany. Unfortunately, Emil Zuhlsdorff also died in this house, unfortunately. Remember to visit our website. You're on the YouTube channel. Buy the book on Amazon. Lots of opportunities. Take the free self-guided walking tour using just your phone of all the captain's homes in Bayview. It's all here, folks. And don't forget, if you want to donate for that captain's plaque and dog sculpture, the rescue dog, our hero dog, you can also look at the ways to donate at the end of this video, and it's on our website also. So thanks for watching, and don't forget, hats off to our Bayview Lake Captains. See you next time. Bye.
Welcome to another installment of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, where we discuss the lives of the 71 different lake captains that once lived in Bayview, Wisconsin, during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, in the age of sail and steam. This discussion will include their ships, their homes, their families, and their lifetime of sailing adventures on the Great Lakes. Here is the map of lake captains' homes in Bayview to show you where this episode takes place. Its location focuses primarily on the large green arrow. Today we will be discussing the life of Captain Emil Zuhlsdorff, who is one of 4 Bayview lake captains to have lost his life doing what he loved, sailing ships on the Great Lakes. Captain Emil W. Zuhlsdorff, Sr., was born in 1836 in the region of Europe that later became Germany. His immigration date to the USA is unknown, but he did become a naturalized citizen on the 30th of October, 1872. He is first found living in Cleveland, Ohio, beginning in 1875, working as a, quote, sailor, unquote. He was likely a crewman on Great Lakes ships from the very start of his arrival in America, though the names of these ships is unknown. He also likely became married sometime before 1878. His son, Emil Jr., was born in that year, while the family was still living in Cleveland. Emil Sr. became a lake captain for the first time just 2 years later, in 1880, then a mate in 1882, then back again to a captain in 1884. The names of these ships unknown. The next year, 1885, Captain Zuhlsdorff moved his wife and family to Milwaukee. They lived at 2 different addresses from 1885 to 88, and he is recorded working as a sailor, ship or ships unknown. Because this term, like pilot, is found often doubling for lake captain, though not always, it's possible he was a lake captain during these 3 years. However, because he moved away from Cleveland to a different city, Milwaukee, he probably was a mate, at least to start. In 1889, Emil Zuhlsdorff moved to Bayview. The specific address was on Kinnick Avenue, at the intersection of Beecher and Bay Streets. The house has since been torn down. He continued as a, quote, sailor, unquote. From 1890 to 1894, he and the family moved to another house in Bayview, 2208 South Robinson Street. 2 of those years, 1891 and 1894, he was listed as a captain, 1891, and lake captain, 1894, while the other 2 he is shown as a sailor. Again, as previously mentioned, the term sailor and other titles like seaman were often, but not always, used in place of the title of lake captain. Therefore, it's entirely likely, if not probable, that he was a lake captain for these other 2 years as well. From 1895 to 96, Emil moved the family to a third home in Bayview, 2379 South Williams Street. He continued as a lake captain in 1895 and as a mate on the Flint and Pear Marquette No. 2 in 1896, the only ship that could ever be found that he served aboard, though he undoubtedly served on others. Interestingly, in addition to Emil Zuhlsdorff, there were 2 other Bayview lake captains who also served aboard the Flint and Pear Marquette No. 2. Hugh Clark, who was the ship's captain from 1890 to 91, and Frank Tiernan, who was its first mate in 1895, when Emil Zuhlsdorff was captain. Emil Zuhlsdorff Sr. married Jane Langham sometime before 1878, the exact marriage date unknown. She was born in Scotland and immigrated in 1870. They had 3 children, 1 son, Emil Jr., and 2 daughters, Catherine and Carolyn. Daughter Catherine, who went by Katie, graduated from high school in 1893. Earlier that winter, she became treasurer in a newly formed club within Mrs. S. Bryant's Sunday school class, called the TDC. This club, composed of 16 young ladies, was formed for, quote, literary improvement and helping the needy, unquote. Katie later gave one of the recitations during graduation ceremonies on 30th of June, 1893, for the 12th District High School, reading, quote, Peace in Arcadia, unquote. She was also active socially, hosting parties for relatives visiting from Cleveland, participating in group dances with orchestra accompaniment, and being an invited guest to big birthday celebrations, including being invited by Mrs. Brinton of Superior Street to celebrate the 18th birthday of her daughter Daisy in August 1894. Lemonade and food was served, and, quote, the feature of the evening was a mock auction, which resulted in securing a pretty souvenir for each guest, along with other games and music, unquote. The party was also attended by Bayview native Hattie Brownell, who was to marry Bayview Lake Captain Joseph Brownell 5 years later in 1899, thus becoming the only Bayview native that was a wife of a Bayview Lake Captain. Katie Zuhlsdorff went on to work as a stenographer in the Milwaukee County Clerk's office, then married later and moved to Minneapolis. Emil and Jane's other daughter, Carolyn, went by Carrie and became a music teacher. However, she was to die young, at just aged 40 in 1923. Their son, Emil Jr., went on to spend a career at a local Milwaukee bank. Of interest, his wife, Irma, had a famous grandfather in Germany, Rudolf Bethke, who was an inventor credited with literally hundreds of inventions and was knighted by the King of Sweden and the emperors of both Germany and Hungary. Rudolf Bethke also had a monument built to him that still stands in front of the Physics Institute in Frankfurt, Germany. Irma's father and Rudolf's son, Gustav Bethke, immigrated to Milwaukee in 1882 and invented the electric battery, a watch demagnetizer, and built a successful silver plating company that let him retire at age 58. Captain Emil W. Zuhlsdorff died on the 17th of February, 1896, aboard the Flint & Pear Marquette No. 2, when he slipped and fell into an open hatchway while the ship was loading cargo at Payne's Elevator C in Milwaukee's harbor. He died an hour later of his internal injuries. He had been a lake captain for 5 years while living in Bayview. 3 years after his death, wife Jane moved with their 3 children to another house on Russell Avenue in Bayview in 1899. Then moved a few years later to Milwaukee's 13th Street, where she died in 1906. Jane Zuhlsdorff is buried with husband Emil, their daughter Carolyn, and son Emil Jr. at Forest Home Cemetery in Milwaukee. Thanks for watching. This photograph isn't about Bayview or its lake captains, but it's from the same era of Great Lakes maritime history. We thought we'd close with it for enjoyment, as it captures the spirit of the era. If you'd like to read more about Captain Emil Zuhlsdorff, please go to our website. In addition, this channel and its matching website also plan to support various maritime history projects related to Bayview's lake captains. One of these is a plaque and marker with the captains' names and addresses on it, as part of the creation of the Bayview Lake Captains Historic District, which will be the first of its kind in America. If you would like to donate to support these projects, to include this and other markers honoring Bayview's lake captains, with 100% of all donations and contributions in all forms going to support them, please consider donating to us through the listings shown next. If, for some reason, we are unable to secure these markers, then all funds donated to this site will be given as a cash donation to the museum ship SS City of Milwaukee in Manistee, Michigan. That is the only surviving intact ship once captained by at least 2 and likely 3 different Bayview lake captains. I'm Simon Stanhope, narrator for these episodes. Join us again soon for the next chapter of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains.